And in other news, Dirk Smith's case against Original Systems was thrown out today after the company released full videos showing that the game was, in fact, not vaporware. Next up is Tales of Citizens. Stay tuned. Yes, welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens. This is episode number 34. I am Bridger. I will be your host for today. We've got a great show for you. We just had Citizencon 2015 last week, and it was a doozy. Probably the biggest news drop of features and videos that we've ever had with regards to Star Citizen, except for maybe the original Kickstarter. And we are glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell a friend or two, won't you? But first, let me introduce my co-host to my, let's see, this is the left. Over here, we've got Gray. Welcome, sir.
Just kidding, I actually have voice. I was just screwing with you
Oh,
there.
God damn. Every time it's my fault. We're doing it again. No, I'm just kidding. How you doing,
We're
Gray?
good, we're good. Not bad, not bad.
All right, also to my other left, we've got Calathulu here from Unrepentant Gaming. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me back. It's always a good time.
All right, so we have a lot to cover today, and to that end, I am just going to try and cut life in the verse to as short as possible. This is the part where we talk about things that we've been doing in Star Citizen, or, since it's not out yet, what we've been doing within while we're waiting for Star Citizen. So, Gray, what have you been doing recently?
Well, the big one is I finally got to test Descent Underground. That's
Ooh.
Wingman's baby. So it was opened up to alpha backers about a week ago, give or take. And he opened it up to more original Kickstarter, like beta level backers, which is what I'm at. I don't have the huge package.
Well then.
Well then, there we go. That one's out there. Yeah.
Do with that
So,
what you will.
regardless, it's very true to the original content. I loved Descent back in the 90s. God. And it's good. I think it has a long way to go, but it definitely is an enjoyable title.
Okay.
I encourage people to check it out.
And
Or Club Cali with something heavy.
well, you know I'm not one for alpha, so tell me when it gets closer and I will get a lot more excited.
Yes. Right. I mean, right
almost
now it's basically just arena combat.
Hmm.
Sounds familiar, but
Which was a lot of the fun part of Descent way back in the day, right?
it was actually, and it's well done. It seems relatively well balanced, and it's really funny watching somebody mega missile themselves in the face.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is good, depending on your point of view. If you're not the guy who's shooting himself in the face on accident, it probably is a good time.
I think everybody does it at least once. It's like, oh god, I've got one of these. Oh, I right-clicked and I was right next to them. And it's vapor.
All right, so
Well,
Callie,
Fair enough.
what have you been doing recently?
A lot, it turns out, but I'll make it very, very quick. So, Planet Base just released on Steam, and it's an awesome. Obviously, we've got the video there. It's an awesome, base builder. If you're really interested in it, it's pretty simple, but it gets complex fast, and it's fun. Other than that, I'm actually making a return to the tabletop War Machines and Hordes, which, if you've not played, is a great deal of fun. Many models, much chagrin, making steam-powered robots that smash things with fists. And, of course, last but not least, I've got a new baby. And thank you, Ililian, for the shout-out for fatherhood there.
Oh, I thought you were like, I've got a new baby. I just bought a car. No.
This is
Not a euphemism. An actual
Not a
infant
people
human.
with baby.
Yeah. And I have not checked out Descent, but I do have the huge package. So I guess we can go from there.
Okay. Well,
Oh, good.
starting
Oh, good. I'm
off
glad
with a
to hear
bang.
One of us does.
So you mentioned
Well,
you mentioned Planet
Go ahead.
Base. This is something that I saw too, and I was like, "Huh, that looks interesting. That's up my alley." Those kind of things. And then I'm going to Steam expecting it to be early access, and to my surprise, the first time I've heard of this thing, it's available, and that is a fantastic feeling. If I had the
Yeah.
money, I would have bought it at that moment. Like, I had to restrain my hand. Like, you don't have that money, hand. You can't do this. It physically doesn't exist. But we can always get more debt. No, we can't, Mr. Hand. Don't you understand Steam sales are coming up soon? We need to save all our debt for December.
Let's be fair here. Steam sales are always coming up soon.
It's true. It's every 2 weeks you've got something ridiculous. Plant-based, excellent game. The 30-second synopsis is, it's a great game. It's got a ton of users now. They got a big cash influx. They're a small indie studio, and I think they can add a lot more to the game with the number of users and the cash they have in there. But as a release, it's pretty standalone. The AI could probably use some fixes, but that's true from every title I've ever played. So there you go.
Well, let me ask you this question:
Hit me.
What's the other game? RimWorld? Are you familiar with RimWorld?
In fact, I brought RimWorld up on this show a couple of times. I love RimWorld to death.
Well, how would you compare RimWorld and Planet-Based? Just before we go on to Star Citizen.
Would say that the similarities are they are both base builders, and the similarities end there.
Okay.
RimWorld is much more Dwarf Fortress-esque than Planet-Base is. It's a little more complex, and there's a very active modding community for it.
The
so you can have a lot of fun with that.
When somebody says Dwarf Fortress is your characters will actively try to kill themselves.
Well, then you've now captured the gist of it.
There we go.
And RimWorld, I've been playing that recently too. They're not terribly recently.
That is an alpha, as I understand it, but it's getting a lot of stuff added to it over time.
It is an alpha. I would say if the developer Tinin were not so thorough, he could probably call it a beta or even get ready for a release. It is that far along in its development for the kind of game it is. But he keeps it in alpha, and he keeps adding new things to it, such as animal husbandry just got released. So you can now actually raise and breed animals for your
animals in
base.
space. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say no. I mean, I've always wanted to marry a muffalo, but it's not a fat joke, people. You can move on. All right.
Some might say it's not unusual. I say it is unusual, Tom Jones. All right, so the things that I have been doing is, holy crap, Guild Wars 2. It's like leaking into everything else that I do. Now at this point, I just have to... so I started Tales of Tyria. I don't know if I mentioned this 2 weeks ago in the last show, but I started up Tales of Tyria again, which was my Guild Wars 2 show before Tales of Citizens, and I'm very excited for the expansion that's coming out this Friday, and you guys should all play it if you never played it, and if you did play it, you should play it again because it's getting so much better with the expansion, and that's all I'll really say about that until, next week when we're talking about Tales of Tyria. But you know what? It's only fair because Tales of Citizens was leaking into Tales of Tyria last week because I was so excited about the Citizencon stuff. But anyway, let's get to the actual Star Citizen talk today.
Enough leaking. Let's start gushing.
Yeah. Yes. Let's do that.
Well, I'm surprised you know about gushing with the small package, Gray. Sorry.
So,
why go one step when you can always go one step too far?
So I was. Here's the thing, too. I was so into getting the Tales of Tyria show out that when Citizencon was happening, I literally forgot about it until after it was done. And then people were posting in the Slack chat all this stuff. I'm like, no spoilers! No spoilers! I have to go watch the presentation right now, but I can't right now because if I start watching it,
that Penny Arcade spoilers comic every time somebody says that.
I just need a lobotomy.
Gruesome lobotomy.
Yeah, so I knew that if I started watching any pieces of this and I went to look at the star map or I would not be able to stop. So I held off until later this past week when I actually had a bunch of time and I went and watched the presentation and I watched all the crazy cool videos and the Squadron 42 thing and the Gone Play with the Star map. It's so great. So let's start by talking about the presentation here, which has basically everything contained within it, because I took a bunch of notes on this. And the first thing I thought when I saw the presentation is, holy crap, guys, they managed to get either build a Cutlass or they managed to do some weird hologram TV stuff to get it to look like they are underneath a Cutlass, because that's what I thought it looked like. But you're right, that's a Concorde. That's That's
the
a
fact
jet.
is, all of their ships have some real life elements.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah. No,
And the Concorde's a really cool plane.
It is a very cool plane. When I first saw it, I thought immediately of the Cutlass as well, and I thought maybe it's supposed to be an Endeavor. Like they just had that
Too
sail.
small.
Maybe they're going
Too
for
small.
yeah. Fair enough. Well, it's not supposed to be to scale. Yeah, but
Where's
yeah,
your sense
they
of
did.
adventure?
I mean, the other thing I thought was straight from Jurassic Park. They spared no expense when it came to the. they got a great setup.
They said to that one particular critic at that one particular website, "Oh, you want to see extravagant use of money? We'll show you an extravagant use of money." Not quite.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah, so
Subscribers for providing this company with more money in subscriptions for marketing than most developers will see in their first 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So-
we
so
have
that
so
was-
much money we can build a fake spaceship for real. So let's jump in. One of the most exciting features was right there at the beginning, elevator improvements, interface improvements to the elevator. I cannot say how excited I am about that.
I figured they're burying the lead with that one. Really, I mean,
Right?
that's got to be the biggest thing we're all waiting for.
They just kind of walked all over it. But no, they announced this big change. So we're not going to get Star Marine first. We're going to get it kind of, but only after we get this Persistent Universe demo. Like they reverse the order of those things. It sounds like Star Marine is still a plan, right?
Yeah, we're not going to start off with round-based PvP
Combat.
for Star Marine combat, which is what Star Marine effectively was a round-based testing bed for FPS. And there were a lot of questions actually coming out about like how would respawn work if it's a game where you're going to die very quickly, how fun is it to die and not have a respawn, and so on and so forth. I think it's actually smart of them to start with the PU version.
Yeah.
This will make it so when people get out of their ship and they start shooting at other people in the Corvalix abandoned shipping hub, spoilers, you will actually have to meaningfully act as if you're going to be inconvenienced when you get shot, because you will. You'll end up halfway across this 1,000,000+ kilometer map in some hospital bed.
At a comrade.
I think that's much more of a deterrent, and it's much more representative of the kind of gameplay and deterrent that they want there to be, rather than starting off with a whole bunch of people going, "Why isn't this more like Counter-Strike?"
Yeah, that's true. How many people do you think they're going to be able to fit on one of those quote-unquote maps? One of those instances?
They said 25 in an instance, but they're pushing for 40 by the release point.
Yeah.
So
The Star
yeah.
Marine, I think that was supposed to just start off as like 5v5 in the hallways, because that was the size of the map.
Yeah.
And then Ender's Game was supposed to be 20 on 20 or something like that.
We're always going to call it. We're not going to call it by its
I'm
actual name. Sadaball.
sorry.
They
It's not
spent
Sadaball.
so much
This is Ender's
time
Game.
coming up with Sadaball
Making-
and like crafting it. They're like, should we call it Scatterball? No.
And everybody was
Stratterball.
really into it.
Yeah.
Everyone was so interested in participating.
And they revealed it, and everybody's
then
like,
it became
the Ender's Game mode.
Yeah.
EG
Well,
mode.
And they even likened it to Ender's Game in one of their presentations. So it's not.
Yeah.
That's true.
inconceivable, I'll call it that.
So we'll get Star Marine eventually, and I was kind of excited about that because I have always been a fan of the purpose objective based gameplay more so than the sandbox gameplay. And I recognize the unusual nature of backing Star Citizen and not exactly having a huge hard-on for sandbox gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be clear, I totally get the disappointment of some people who were really looking forward to round-based FPS combat.
As long as it's still coming,
People enjoy it.
I'm not going to go
Yeah.
nuts about it.
But from the game development standpoint, I think this was the smarter move, rather than starting people off and I just got shot in the head, time to respawn on a new map version.
Well, I think they're also if they release, this Alpha 2.0, Star Citizen Alpha 2.0, as all this stuff is also coming out at the same time, there's not going to be a huge focus on the FPS stuff specifically, and we know that they've been having issues with the animations and stuff that they've been telling us about during the Star Marine updates. Like, Star Marine's not out, and here's why. But if they put out the Star Marine thing now, let's say rather at the same time that they're planning to release this instead, then we would pay way more attention to the problems that they've been running into and that they haven't solved yet. So they're like, we don't want people to focus on those problems. Those are going to get fixed eventually. But if we make this part of this much bigger thing, then there will be problems everywhere, and they won't focus on these ones in the FPS.
Yeah, and what the way they're releasing this likens itself to a lot is the Elite Dangerous alpha, where you went from like a single ship instance, and then you had like a little mini test of the universe with a few systems, and then you break out the next big one. And that's a logical progression. I was having a hard time really understanding why they were doing it the way they were at SIG, with we're going to do this little piece here, this little piece here, then we're going to hope they glue together well. And then as you've watched the evolution of their development happen, it's definitely been gluing together very well without releasing the small pieces. So I'd say this makes more sense than a round-based FPS that wasn't even going to be in the final product outside of like a tacked-on, added-on for fun kind of piece. Like Arena Commander will stick around, but it's never going to be the main focus of the game, or at least not for most.
I think it's going to be a main focus of the game. I mean, when we were talking about Guild Wars 2 before the show, and the Guild Wars 2 has essentially 3 pieces that all fit together but are also subtly separate from each other. You've got the World v. World stuff, you got the PvE stuff, and then you've got the structured PvP stuff. And I think Arena Commander and Star Marine are going to be the equivalent of structured PvP for Star Citizen. And I guess you could probably call Squadron 42 the PvE section of I guess it's not really a good comparison, but that is its own separate thing from Star Citizen. You could play just Squadron 42. You could play just Arena Commander and ignore everything else in Star Citizen if you wanted to, and they're going to be essentially, hopefully, complete experiences. That's at least my understanding of the design goals.
Yeah, but in looking at like a structured PvP for Guild Wars 2, since we're gonna keep looping that back around into the show a few times here. Tales of Tyria.
That's called cross promotion, people. That's how we do it in the real world.
So your character actually advances a little bit from structured PvP. I mean, you gain various things. I don't really see that you're gonna have a character advance in the round-based FPS that will stay in the final Star Citizen content.
You're right. That's going to be more separated than it is in Guild Wars 2, I think, unless they want to do some like crazy awesome. I mean, this is something I expect maybe in the future after they've got everything else bolted down. They could put like an in-fiction like Arena Commander / Star Marine League in the way that we have like the ESL in reality today. They could make a fictitious ESL type in the future, so that you have this like electronic sports league that people could play in with their character winning actual UECs if they win tournaments. So that is a way that they could provide actual reward tracks for people playing the PvP, structured PvP mode.
And that would appeal to the esport. But again, when it comes to character advancement or storyline advancement, you're not going to see a lot of that from, which you will from like the structured PvP in Guild Wars or in WoW, where you got all kinds of neat raiding trinkets or whatever it was you were going after.
Guild Wars, I think Guild Wars it's a little bit less with the advancement.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they just sort of unlock everything for you when you go into that.
Well, you get everything, but the new reward tracks that they added since we had left Gray allow you to get things for your PvE / World versus World experience from SPVP. So if you do nothing but SPVP, you still come out of it with things you can use in the other mode. And I think what Callie's saying,
SPVP stuff on ascended trinkets.
You can do that, and you'll also get other loot, and you'll also get experience tomes that you can use to level your character up outside of SPVP, because it doesn't matter in SPVP.
Yeah.
And what Callie's saying is that in Arena Commander and Star Marine, your performance there is very, very unlikely to have any major impact at all with your persistent universe character. And I'm saying they could do that in fiction, potentially, but you're right, I think, Callie. They're not going... Because Guild Wars 2 does it in a very gamey way. It's just like, here's some stuff. You can take this elsewhere. Like, it's not trying to be immersive the way that Star Citizen is.
I could see original systems actually giving you things like hangar decorations and
Yes,
So,
an
and like
award.
clothing and things like that as rewards.
Yeah, and my hope is that these become really good training, like shipboarding tactic training. Like you can, okay, so in World of Tanks, as a World of Warships, you get a training room basically, and you spawn in like, okay, let's take an example. I want a carrier, and I want 2 battleships and 6 cruisers, and I want to practice attacking that with my group of 4. And how can we break that formation apart? My hope is you can do something similar with this turn-based FPS. Is they get good AI going in there, and it's just you versus the AI, and you can spawn in. I want to practice boarding in Idris, and so it would require you to have an arena commander and a star marine that are synced up really tightly. But again, going back to that's my hope is where this could go, is I can practice my breach and board as opposed to getting clothing or whatever else.
Which will match with their whole like capture the Idris mode that they've talked about.
So it ties it all right back in there.
Yeah.
See, it's a nice little bow on the package.
There you go. All right, so that is exciting. Now, one of the big numbers they threw out here is that their zones, I guess they're going to be maps that you could fly around in without using, I guess even with using quantum drive.
It would just like there's the system map or the thrust. Like okay, so maybe we want to go over the four types of thrust before we talk about the zone.
Right, yeah, but the numbers are what blew me away, because they said 1 million kilometers by 1 million kilometers by 200,000 kilometers. 400 quadrillion square kilometers or something ridiculous like that. That is huge.
You could choose to fly through at stupidly slow speeds.
Now, I think I did the math right. Yeah, I think I did the math right. And I think if you're flying at 200 meters per second, you go from the very bottom of that, because 200,000 kilometers is the smallest one, right? That's the up, down. But theoretically, that's along the disk of whatever system you're in, so you won't necessarily want to go up or down, because the way that most star systems tend to form is they form around a disk, because the way the star is spinning in space. And Tim is going to come on in a couple weeks and tell me why we're wrong about that. But
and then you start looking at Jupiter, and Jupiter's radius is 69,911 kilometers, according to a quick YouTube or a quick Google search here.
So that leaves 130-ish kilometers.
Double that for diameter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you're talking, about 100 kilometers or 100,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
So roughly 50,000 kilometers on a side of
above and below
something the size
the planet
of Jupiter. Yeah. And since we know that the planet that we're going through or going around is 50% larger than Jupiter, 25,000 kilometers is still not small beans above and below.
And there's just probably going to be no reason. They're just going to set everything up along that plane to make it easy for them, probably. It might not be the most realistic thing ever, but they'll probably just do that, especially because, Jupiter has its own rings, but and they're in their own plane, right? But the thing that I think I did the math on. So if you're going 200 meters per second.
In YouTube chat, just a real quick thing. William Burns says that has been corrected to 400,000 kilometers.
Really? Yeah. So after the presentation, they corrected that, huh?
That's sizable.
That is much bigger. So I think I did the math right, and I think if you're going at 200 meters per second and you're going from the bottom to the top, and I was doing the math on the 200,000 kilometers, that would take about 16 minutes at your normal, like a medium speed on a
even
300i or something.
Even at 400,000 kilometers, these are not realistically sized star systems. But then again, they were never supposed to be.
No, because
that's the important bit.
It's very impossible to do real time with all the other things they want to do. So compromise is the name of the game. But 400,000, that is very impressive too. So I feel like the 1 million by 1 million by 200,000 might be the area around each individual planet, or maybe that's just the maximum for any specific instance, I guess. If you're going from one planet to another, it doesn't make any sense why you would have to be in the same instance. You could probably just be sent to another one on another planet.
Which is probably what will happen. So they're going to build around a planet. So we saw the demo for I want to say Centaur, but that's not right. It was Crusader, the Crusader planet.
Yep.
So we saw a demo. I think that might be that and the moon and surrounding stations. That'll end up being the the million by 400K system.
Oh, because we can get multiple billion kilometers right now.
Yeah. So but multiple billion kilometers. I mean, think about how far the distance from the Earth to the Sun is. It's 1 AU, 93 million miles. Yeah. You're looking at, I don't want to do the kilometer conversion in my head because it's going to take me a while, but wow. You're looking at a good chunk of space. And plus, you want to hide asteroids and maybe derelict ships.
I remember hearing this number out there, and this fits. It's the radius from the Sun to Neptune that they can fit right now.
Okay.
Because Neptune is 4.498 billion kilometers out. So we do have space with the current floating point system that they converted to, which, by the way, the math behind that is amazingly interesting.
Oh, yeah.
If any of you ever have the chance to geek out with some computer science stuff, just sort of the discrete math thing.
Yeah. Well, it is. Yeah. And so these are going to be planetary systems instead of star systems in these big maps. There might be a couple planets in one, depending on what the dynamics of the instance are. But they can still model the star system, which of course brings us into why we need so many kinds of propulsion. Because now there are 4 types. You've got, I saw Bridger corrected my thrusters to precision. And we have combat maneuvering, then we have supercruise, then we have quantum. And I think the final type, I guess the fifth type would be jump, right?
Right.
Jump
they didn't quantify that specifically, but yes.
Yeah. So we have 5 types of propulsion now.
So Kita in chat actually pointed out that in the arc map, if you look, there are some things that are orbiting that are not along the plane of the system, but elliptic. Are potentially be along a perpendicular plane. And with a 400,000 a vertical area, 400,000 kilometers, that's definitely possible. There's no question that's possible there, especially because Crusader is probably one of the largest celestial objects, of course, next to a sun, that you'll be anywhere near in Star Citizen. I mean, if it's 50% larger than Jupiter, that's pretty damn big. I know that there are some really big gas giants out there, but I don't know how much bigger they are than Jupiter. Are they twice as big as Jupiter?
Well, you have to bear in mind that at about 4 times the mass of Jupiter,
you've got a star.
You've got a brown dwarf. You've got a failed star, basically. Yeah. It can't be a planet, but it lacks the mass to ignite. So. And now Tim can rest happy at night that someone could throw that out there. And for reference, the plane of the system that is called the plane of the ecliptic. So
not the ecliptic? What's the ecliptic?
Not the ecliptic. I don't know what the ecliptic is. It's the elliptic. I could have the wrong term. It's been a while since I looked it up. But yeah. So
the ecliptic is the apparent path of the sun on the celestial sphere.
Interesting.
Maybe it is the ecliptic. What is the elliptic?
Maybe it is the ecliptic. Oh, no,
the elliptic
right.
is
the wrong term.
Of or relating to having the form of an ellipse. Welcome to Thesaurus and definitions on Star Citizen.
All right, we'll
Tales of Citizen.
All right,
okay.
Ecliptic. I think it's the ecliptic. Ecliptic it is.
Okay, so anyway, let's get back to that. I like the idea of having a precision maneuvering because how many videos have we seen of people trying to take off in like the training mode just to have them bounce around inside the hangar like a pinball? So yeah, precision is going to be very important for people to get used to their ships at the start when they're docking and stuff. But you know that all the hotshot people are going to be coming in full combat maneuvering speed, docking down into an asteroid hangar like, I got this. Like there's some Ferrari driver that's like peeling out into a U-turn into a parallel parking spot.
In Elite, I did that. I wanted to test out my 2-stick setup, so I had 2 of the 16,000s come in, and I'm like, I'm going in, get this thing right. And I just managed to pull it right before I slammed into the deck. I pulled it back up and just hovered, and then it docked itself and locked. I even got a comment on one of the YouTube videos. I've never seen someone land that fast. And of course, totally worthless skill to have. I mean, who cares? But it was fun, and that's the important bit.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Ken says they found planets 11 to 13 times larger than Jupiter. That is insane.
Fascinating.
So if I get that wrong, you can blame Ken.
Yeah, so larger or denser, I guess.
None of them are named Yavin 4.
Yeah, it's the amount of mass. So you can find things considerably larger if the mass is sufficiently lower. But it was, what was it? I'm looking for the number. There was a specific number on the amount of mass.
So Supercruise is a new thing, right? So
it is a new thing.
It's interesting that they took the term directly from. Is that a term that's existed in sci-fi, or is that something that Elite? Well, right, but is that something that Elite took from something else in sci-fi, or did they lift it directly from Elite? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Not that I know of it, but then again, I'm not, necessarily a person that reads every sci-fi thing that ever existed.
Oh, hang on. No, it's a thing that's existed in aeronautics. Supercruise is sustained supersonic flight of a supersonic aircraft with a useful cargo, passenger, or weapons load performed efficiently, which typically precludes the use of highly inefficient afterburners. So supercruise is when you are going faster than the speed of sound in an airplane, and you're not using afterburners because they're very inefficient. So that is technically where it comes from.
Or to put it more correctly, almost, but not quite, entirely without applicability inside of space.
That's true. It's just borrowing the word and then completely repurposing it to mean go really fast in space. Actually, the Concorde used supercruise. It was not, in fact, using afterburners the entire time. So that's another tie-in to the Star Citizen.
But from a
Citizencon.
From a sci-fi point of view, I think that Elite was the first group or application of it in space, as opposed to using it for cruising speed of aircraft above the speed of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, it makes it easier to make that transition.
It's a perfect definition. Like good. Even if Elite didn't use it, they used it because it's so perfect to fit for what you're talking about. You're not just cruising, you're super cruising. It's faster than you think. But now we come to this stupid quantum thing. If they can model a system out to Neptune, that's going to take you days and days and days, if not weeks or months, to go from one side to the other at quantum speed.
Okay.
Get that 0.2c out of here. I want an explanation.
Let's just call it the mini jump, because that's exactly what it is. I saw the star map. I saw the little tunnel that appears between two planets in a system. It's a mini jump, and let it go.
We're not just banging rocks together. We know how to build a quantum space hole.
You just gotta let it go. I mean, the 0.2c keeps showing up. It's gonna show up forever. I'm sorry.
When they come out with hipster cruise.
I'm out.
What does that mean? That means that you go much slower because it's cooler.
No. When you're done, okay. So here's hipster cruise in a nutshell. You enter the warp space of hipster cruise, and when you exit, you have a beard and you're wearing flannel.
Oh, okay. So it's almost like going to Plaid, but not quite.
And you're already too cool for the place you've arrived at. You need to go
true.
back.
You liked it before you got there. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that's me on most vacations thinking about it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because you wouldn't go somewhere unless you knew you were going to... Okay, wow, that's a paradox I'm not trying to think of. So, one of the things I noticed, because they did have the demo showing off the constellation and all of the good flying around and stuff in it. But one thing that I noticed is while they're flying around in the constellation, they don't have, at least the pilot didn't have, the typical radar dome that all of the other fighters and stuff do. So when the bogies showed up, I didn't see any way for the pilot to have any real situational awareness other than, is it within that view in front of you? Nope, I guess you don't know where it is then.
I have a guess about that, actually, which is the cameras they were showing for this video were not the pilot. It was one of the co-pilot's perspectives inside the ship.
They did go to him sometimes. They also went to the gun turret, but I think they did show the pilot a few times.
All right. And my other guess is in the constellation, it's going to be it's a much more powerful system, has much bigger computers on it. I'm just pulling this out of my ass here, people, so don't quote me on it too much. So it's going to have a lot more in the HUD. So if I'm right, you can quote me on it and say Callie was right. A sentence you should say a lot. However, I'm wrong, then I never said this, and we can just move on from it. Are we clear? No, they're probably going to have the hologram appearing there, but everyone walking around the ship, depending on the assigned role to that person, maybe the station or whatever, will have it show up in the HUD.
Right. I think you're right on that. In that, even in the other ships, that so here it looks like this is what we're seeing. From the pilot's point of view, this is what I thought we saw, because you can see he's making the jump himself. This isn't the co-pilot. This is the actual pilot, and I didn't see any
that's
place.
The actual pilot.
So maybe there's like a Rio station somewhere on the ship for somebody to have, like, but that seems weird that the pilot wouldn't have a radar dome kind of thing like all the others do. And maybe it's just incomplete. I mean, the constellation's not officially flyable yet. So
or maybe they had it turned off. I mean, it might be big enough or prominent enough when you're in a constellation that they decided to say, hey, let's let's make that something that's more optional for the pilot to have, or is only on a certain screen, so it's not always taking up a part of their HUD.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, I would believe that they would let you turn that on and off with the larger ships.
William, that can't be
Because
right.
there will be times
the
you
sun
don't
to
care.
Neptune is 11 hours at 0.2 C.
Oh, wow. Well, see, that's not terrible.
Well, it's 7 seconds sun to the Earth at 1C, right? So it goes to a whopping 14 seconds at 0.2. Or, God
So,
damn it all. What
you
was
heard it here
All
first, folks. It's 11 hours
35.
across the Star Citizen system. No.
Well, they need to put time sinks in. I mean, Ark, you have to breed a dinosaur, which takes about 48 hours real time, or about 17 months in game.
Please don't hold up Ark as the example of what Star Citizen should do with gating.
Their time
You
sinks
can
should
see Bridger
absolutely.
twitching here. You can already
Okay,
see him
so
being
maybe
like, oh,
maybe
God,
the
I'm
numbers
gonna
that
kill
I was
everything.
looking at, I think Pluto when I was looking at the number. And Pluto, I mean, it is really a lot further, but it's not more than
It is.
10 or
Not that
20% further. 4.2 light hours. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, Sun to Neptune,
So,
11 hours at 0.2 C.
times 5.
That's still my point,
Yeah.
though. If you're traveling at quantum speed, you have to be online for 11 hours to travel from one wormhole to another?
No, it's the mini jump. They're going to do the whole time dilation.
But that's why
thingy
I'm
and
upset about the
things will
0.2
happen.
to begin with, right?
It shouldn't be there. We've established two things. One, it shouldn't be there. Two, we have to move on.
Yeah, you're right. Those two things have been established.
Bridger, I know she hurt you, but you have to let it go.
But there are people who are wrong on the internet. I can't go to bed because then they'll still be wrong. Obligatory XKCD reference. So let's go on to talking about what the hell were we talking about? So the first thing I noticed when watching this is they did the EVA outside of the space station, and man, people are super small compared to these ships. I mean,
Yes.
Intellectually, I kind of knew that, but
Yeah.
people are small, and that is interesting.
Yeah, they have had those size comparisons out on some of the fan sites, the general forums, and God rest your soul should you go there on your own. The Reddit, the subreddit for Star Citizen, they've got the pictures where it shows like here's a semi, here's an Aurora, and that always was like, wow, that's pretty big. And then now we actually have a chance to see these people walking around these ships. You're like, wow, they are
Like,
exactly as big as.
Where is he? Oh, he's
yeah.
that tiny speck right there that you can barely see.
Who was it that was doing these ones? I've got the topic up here. Let me just link that. It's
Guys,
Zulu.
It turns
This guy
out
Zulu has done amazing work with that.
space is vast. It turns out, right? It gives you a real sense of perspective, and it's kind of horrifying. Like, what if I lose my jetpack, or like something happens and I can't get back? My ship is so far away.
Well, see, that's where
all
you
kinds of screwed.
that's where you as a player will need to buy the cyanide tooth that you can then press the very series of buttons and break the cyanide tooth and then poison yourself so you die and then respawn somewhere else.
There we go. That's the obvious solution.
One of the things that I thought was going to happen is
Gameplay
this
mechanic?
guy was
Kill
going to come back from turning on the uplink, only to find out that somebody from the Constellation had jumped in his Hornet and flew away. But they didn't do that, and I was sad. I wanted space trolls, really, is what I wanted. But okay, so the that's kind of interesting. So you got all these missions to go around and do things, and they've already mapped out this these satellites and stuff, and you'll just be able to go in and to control things. It's really cool.
Can I have a moment of silence for my expectations when he saw that giant warning panel right in front of him? Because I remember on the 350R, you could get under that thing and it would say, "Do not touch. This shit will kill you." And I paused the video just so I could see what the very vulgar message was, and there wasn't one. It was very sad. I'm calling it here. Star Citizen is now just a game for casuals and kiddies.
Yeah, that sounds right.
No profanity on the warning signs. This is clearly
Damn it.
aware.
This isn't going to happen. Clearly not.
So here's the other thing. when we were looking at that, they talk. I was actually very surprised that they were going to have like this with working missions and stuff. At first, I was like, oh, okay, they're going to put this out with like some as a sandbox thing. You can jump in with your friends and just walk around and stuff and not do much. But then they're like, no, there's going to be missions. They're going to tell you to go do things, and then other people can come in and try to stop you. And I'm like, whoa, okay, well that's interesting. That's more than I expected actually. Then I kind of expected this whole thing to come out maybe in January. Or later, but it sounds like it's planned to come out by November or December this year, based on how he kept hinting without saying.
It makes sense. They have the map, they have the code merge going. They have most of the animations.
Let's fill in the blank. Star Citizen's gonna release in
what is it, October?
Years?
2 October, 2 years. 2 years is good.
Was that like are we filling in Mad Libs
pretty
here?
Good. Yeah, it's Mad Libs. You know, the blank is 2 blank. All right,
200 days.
200 days. All right, 2 fortnights. I like that one. That's 28 days approximate, right?
I'll go with that.
So
all right.
One of the things when they were they were quantum jumping around here. I was looking at it and thinking. What?
Quantum jumping, I like it. Now we've gone from quantum drive to quantum jump. It's perfect. It's good.
They're quantum leaping. They're quantum leaping
support
around.
They're quantum leaping
at
around.
At one
there
point,
we go.
he was going straight at Crusader or one of the moons. I can't remember. And I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna clip
awesome.
right through, just like Eve. And I hated that in Eve. And then it stopped, and it was like, zoom, just stopped right at the front of the. I was like, whoa, okay, that's better. Yeah, it was definitely a big nope moment.
My first thought was, it's good inertia is not a thing.
It's very good that they have inertial dampeners. Yes.
Yes, because that would have been a thinly spread paste on the cockpit window. Would have been an awesome visual to have as the demo, but you know.
Now they came here for repairs. Let's take a look at these drones, shall we? Did you notice that these drones are flying around with rotors? Unless that's a gyroscope.
He was very clear that was in progress. He said he intended repair to be a more complex thing and it to be more of a player thing. I am going to guess that rotor drones were probably not the initial design.
No, they just took these guys from like ArcCorp, which is like an atmosphere area, which you might get repaired from.
Well, you can see atmosphere coming off the ship, even in this visual here. So, I mean, this must be something that was originally done on the ground and reanimated. But, I have to imagine that the drones themselves were either part of something like inside an Idris for repair, where, you know, you do this, you bring the drones out, you do your mini game, whatever, or it was something done on a planet at like a, Earth, New York space station or whatever, space sport.
I think you're right. I think those repair animations are designed for a planet or someplace with an atmosphere specifically, because you're right, all that dust being kicked up wouldn't just keep cycling around. So it's very much in progress. We don't want to nitpick too much on that stuff.
No, but it was very funny though.
So what happened next? So they went and they got the repairs. You know, they're showing that you can do these. These are the different things you can do. And then they showed off the star map. I mean, holy moly, that is impressive.
That's so pretty.
At the same time,
so pretty.
Where was that? That was linked off of the Squadron 42 site?
No, it's just the top.
No, it's directly at the top.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think right before they did the star map, they did the FPS, or that reversed.
Yeah. What?
Did they do the FPS before they did the star map, or do I have that reversed?
I don't remember.
I think they did the star map first. So when I first played around with this here, it felt a little kludgy to me. I don't know if I kind of felt like I should be able to do the zoom, the zoom out with the mouse.
Click. Yeah, I mean, from a web dev perspective,
like I should be able to hover my mouse over the Kayla system and zoom in and just go into it. Like it feels,
rather than having to click twice.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then to get out,
I mean, it's beautiful. It's also in progress. Like, wait a minute, what is that? Oh, it's a jump point. Okay, it looked like it was a traveling. I love that you can travel through the wormhole, though. That's kind of cool.
Yes. They clearly wanted to reserve that clicking for entering and leaving systems, or entering and leaving jump points, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And right-click, once I figured out that right-click existed, which God knows why I didn't try that earlier, getting information became that much easier.
Well, that's because you're a Mac user, let's be clear.
No, I'm not. I hate Macs. I hate Macs with a passion. Let me throw this out
a joke.
I despise using a Mac.
You didn't try to right-click because you're a Mac user C. We're following the joke. You know, there's a logical conclusion.
This is new. What is the P, E, and T here? I don't remember. Oh, economy, population, and threat. Okay, there you go.
Nice.
So what is the pet of the system?
So
it's like
you're
20, 13, and 0 or whatever.
When you're trying to find a new system, you come in and you make a pet scan.
Ayo!
Yeah. I want someone to find me the system that has the pet listed as cat girls.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I can think of no better export you could have.
Hang on. This is interesting.
No? All right. Okay.
The jump points are orbiting the star? They're not fixed points in space.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're singularities. They're little gravity things like everything else.
Interesting. Now, what else have we learned from this? Pluto is apparently, by the way, people, a planet.
Not on the plane. No, they talked about this. The problem is that in order to make it show up on the map as a planet, they had to label it as a full planet, but they intend it to be a dwarf planet. And it turns out that they have other dwarf planets and other smaller planet-like things.
This dwarf planet
rocky bodies.
But in the initial release, they didn't have it set up so that if it was labeled as anything but a full planet, it would show up on the star map.
So it
all
is
the stuff they wanted to show.
It's still Sol 9.
Planet.
We could still call it Sol 9. That makes sense.
There we go.
Planet or no, it's the 9th major celestial body out from the sun. So I guess depending upon your various
depending on where it's at in its orbit, I really should go figure out where in that year it's going to be. Is it going to be the 8th or the 9th? You know, how far out is it?
No, you're right. It's actually now has to contend with the Croshaw jump point, by the way.
Oh, good.
Because the Croshaw jump point apparently goes in and out of its orbit. It's still well outside of Neptune.
So does it will come inside of Neptune.
Not according to this one. I tell you what, I don't know if it's wrong, but I have also heard that.
If you eventually piss off CIG badly enough, they will just make Pluto ram into Neptune, and that will be the end of it.
Well, you know what? I think in this particular universe, somebody went and pushed Pluto further out so that it would be the 9th planet all the time. So yeah, in this, it's part of the history.
I have it. I have our Star Trek-esque tech speak. Using the wormhole, reverse the gravitational polarity around the wormhole and pull Pluto further out into orbit. By all means, make fun of that explanation. It was terrible.
That's some high poly models for the asteroids right there.
You know what? That's okay. They actually put them in the first place.
That's true.
Yes. Although, are they 100,000 kilometers apart? Because if they're not, Tim may actually have a heart attack.
They do.
I don't know. I mean, this is a pretty vast scale we're looking at right here, isn't it?
It is.
All right, so let's see the control disk here for Mars. What's the information here? A prosperous and populous planet.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess planet-based did work out.
Is that all it takes? So let's see. Hang on. So
Venus
the
is not
star
terraformed.
is the one that has the, like when we're zoomed out. I want to right-click to zoom out of things. But
you just click anywhere else, and it goes whoop.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So the system is what is the PET scan is being used on. So like Vega. Nope, I didn't want to zoom in. Screw you, Vega. The PET scan shows that Vega is slightly lower economy than Sol. I spent a long time looking for Terra, too. I was like, where the hell is Terra? And the other thing is, I like how the 2D works.
Yeah.
I like how it's actually a 2D, 3D hybrid here, so that you can still find things, but you can also see where they are
kind of
in the depth of field, right? Like you can see that Fora is way further in the background from this point of view than anything else because of the way that, I don't know how they do that, but I can't wait to use an Oculus on this thing.
Yeah.
The Stanton system.
So you can sit in the center and look around.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, is Terra's economy higher than Sol?
It should be.
I think they're almost the same.
Well, isn't Terra supposed to be the oldest colony?
No, Stanton was the first. Stanton was the first jump point.
That's right.
This was in last month's jump point, the first colony. That was yeah.
All right. Anyway, very cool thing that we're going to sit here and play with instead of doing an actual show. The people that are listening to the podcast are like, come on.
God damn it.
Yes, the term pet scan is taking off. I like this.
Yeah, although those listening to the show as I'm enjoying the live cast have missed the entire Cat Girls conversation through YouTube right now. So, I mean, at least we have that.
Cat Girl trafficking.
They have that going for them.
Oh, all right, so how about those Scitec controllers, guys? I have to say, one thing that I thought, and somebody actually pointed this out in the chat, this presentation had a higher fidelity than any other that they've done so far. They clearly went and hired, like, there's somebody whose job it was to make sure switching cameras and the next thing in line was ready for when they needed it and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
That person spoke English.
Yes.
Because I think the Germans at Gamescom were very competent people. They were very high fidelity, good camera people who had no idea what was being asked of them.
Yeah. Come over here. No, over here. Over here. Yeah. But that was the one spot in the camera area that I thought was very funny. During the Scitec presentation, getting the guy to do the close-up of the peripheral.
And
Jared, come on, over here.
No, it wasn't Jared. It was Chase.
Oh,
Chase was the one who was zoomed in on the wrong box that was covered with stuff.
Let's go Orlando for this too. Come on.
I love how they were
enough blame.
They were about to reveal. Chris was like, "You want me to show them this now?" He's like, "No, don't show it now." And the crowd was like, "Boo!" And then the camera guy was ready for it. Like, when they show it, I'm gonna be here, man. I'm ready.
There's no way I'm not missing this. Yeah. No, it was a very well done presentation. Now, as far as the Scitec controller goes, I think it looks awesome. But I mean, when it comes to controllers, looks are not necessarily the important part.
This has gotten some rave reviews from a couple of media outlets now.
Okay.
The controllers?
Because the controllers, they haven't talked a lot about the new controller or the bigger version of the controller yet, the one that's based off the X65 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they're talking specifically about this lower end one. And there have been a variety of articles I've seen coming out now saying we don't really care about the game. What we care about is this. Because it's this modular keyboard stick. You could do dual sticks, you could do stick and throttle.
Yeah.
It gives the ability to say, hey, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing a new kind of hardware for these sims that doesn't cost nearly as much as one might expect, at least for the
cost. The cost for the modularity is probably the big thing, because right now you can, if you want to invest the time, set up a dual stick and a throttle and a mouse system. I mean, I've got one on my desk, but I have two different pieces, and in reformatting my computer, replacing the downed hard drive, I lost all of my configuration because that was saved off. That wasn't backed up, because why would I back that up? I'm not that bright. So you can do two sticks and a thruster, but you have to have three different pieces of software. It's all plugged in different areas, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only complaint I have about their modular design is I would love it if they just made it USB 3. Instead of whatever it is I've been looking at with these connectors, because as standard, it means I can just plug it in somewhere. I can plug in my mouse to the keyboard if I wanted to. It doesn't have to be some specialized thing. And no, as much as you might argue that you get faster responses if it's plugged in directly and using a custom bus, it just makes it harder. And the speed you need a response at for an online game is not going to be in the microseconds, so we'll be fine.
But then you're not using the Apple model for hardware. You force everybody to buy only your connectors and adapters.
That's true.
I'm not saying I want that model. I would rather be able to plug in my T16000 and use that for my offhand stick while I'm using the X55 Mark II, which this thing reminds me of.
Hang on, they've said that these things are going to be standalone. Modular meaning that you can use them standalone. So I expect each individual piece will be able to plug in directly with a USB.
So I don't see it up on the screen right now, but they did show an area where there is a connector. And it is definitely not USB.
Well, I think that's this connector right here in the middle here that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can connect it to the keyboard. I mean, why just make it all USB is my question.
What they may actually end up doing, just as a thought, is providing you with one or two cables base that allow you to change that connector into a USB.
Yeah.
And then they're going to try to get people to buy more connectors or adapters.
But I mean, this is a prototype mock-up. It could just be stick a connector on there.
That's true.
Yeah.
Totally we are kind of ahead of ourselves on that.
What I wanted to talk about...
It's all speculation.
What I wanted to talk about is this shot where they're showing the numpad plus the weird thing that sticks on the top of it, plus the throttle, plus the joystick all together.
And you got the keyboard off to the left.
The keyboard's off to the left, but I'm sitting here, I'm trying to figure out, is there a situation where you'd be switching back and forth between your throttle and a WSD setup keyboard?
Yes.
Docking?
Maybe docking, maybe situations where you're just moving around a mid-sized ship.
Starring, yeah. The EVA / being in the ship where you use your throttle in the ship. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I mean, if you're just looking for a few movement keys,
actually, I hadn't thought about switching between first person and ship control. Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what this is. This is the hybrid that's going to allow people to go from ship control. Precision ship control, let me be clear, because mouse is a great ship control setup. It's just not precision ship control.
Yeah.
And precision FPS, which requires keyboard and mouse. You cannot do FPS on a freaking joystick. It's not going to happen.
No,
well, not well.
No, not well.
Not well.
Although
even with a trackball.
Yeah. Although, so
by the way, all of our mocking trackball users, and now here we go.
And trackballs can be very precise, and when you get used to them, which they have a lot of them on this thing. But we don't have a concern of the week, but I've already seen a couple of concerns raised, which are this. With them backing a peripheral device, will they require it to play the game, or this peripheral or any peripheral? Yeah, exactly. No, they aren't going to shoot themselves
I think
in
that
the
is
foot.
a valid concern, but I think that they already have shown that is not the case, because they have custom setups for my old Logitech, Extreme 3D Pro has its own default setup in the damn thing, and so does multiple Scitec sticks that exist, as well as the Warthog, which is the other main competitor. I don't think there's any kind of exclusivity agreement between them. Scitec is going to benefit just by being branded the official, Star Citizen stick.
And them creating a touchscreen high-end model, which, by the way, I may have to find a way to sell my X55 and pick up one of those when it eventually comes out. That's
eBay
amazing.
Is not good enough?
It might be.
So the other thing that I'm noticing on this setup is the keyboard setup there, where it basically is its own WASD thing, but it's taken over the arrow keys and added a bunch of extra buttons that you would normally have around your WASD. I have a feeling like, with all the buttons on that numpad thing, I'm going to have a hard enough time being able to, without looking down, hit exactly the button I want, but I could probably do that. However, the extra row of controls that they have adapted to the top of that's going to be so much worse, because your hand has to be hovering in space. You no longer have a point of reference from which to move.
So those are not frequent use buttons.
Those are mode buttons.
Definitely not frequent use.
So based on designs Scitec's put out in the past, this is again pure speculation about how they're doing it this time, but they always have this series of mode buttons, and that looks like the mode selector. So you might have mapped your controls for ship use with that little keypad, and then mapped your controls for the marine use with that little keypad, and then you map it for trading with that little keypad. And Ian is in fact showing us the other mode selector on the.
I've got it on the X55 here. There actually is a little mode selector wheel that is hiding out right here.
And so Logitech does the same thing. They got the M1, M2, M3 buttons and everything else. So I would guess those are mode buttons. And I know what you're saying about you can't find the buttons in space. I had the same thought with the Logitech G13. When I first got it, I was like, I'm not going to figure out where I'm at with this thing. But I used it for about a year for FPSs, and it works beautifully. And if you've not seen the G13, it looks a lot like that numpad, but it's got a little thumbstick, which I would use for my WASD equivalent. So you've got some options there. Although I would like a thumbstick on this if we're gonna go that route. Although I don't suppose I'm buying this, I'll be honest. It looks cool. I just don't like Scitec, And that's to me, that Scitec is the one that put it out is the biggest problem, because they have so many quality control issues. And I know, like, Gray, you haven't had much trouble with the X55.
Not anything.
But you were actually probably the minority in that case. Because if you look at their recall rates and everything else, I used the X52 and I had no issues with it. But looking at later reviews and returns and everything else, people just hated that thing almost universally. So Scitec's taken a hit in the QA for me.
I think it's possible they did take a hit on QA, and I think it might have been a couple of batches or a specific facility.
Yeah.
And I say that not to get on too much of a rabbit trail, because my wife purchased a Lenovo laptop last year.
Okay.
And the reviews up to a certain point were great. Everyone said this is a great machine, works well, no problems at all.
Mm-hmm.
For about 2 months, around Black Friday, they started mass producing these things. It was the Lenovo Yoga Pro 14. Please, God, don't sue me.
Yoga Pro?
Yeah. It turns around backwards, turns into a tablet. It's got the whole terabyte hard drive.
It does.
It's the fancier business model.
It does its downward dog style.
It does. It does exactly that.
Okay.
So, for about 2 months around Black Friday, they had obviously done a big batch of these things. And every time you picked it up, the back impacted the motherboard and shorted out the laptop.
Well then.
We went through 3 of these things on returns. We'd return it, another one would show up, we'd pick it up, and it would shut itself off. Sometimes it would shock you a little bit. And then you would send it back. And eventually we got one that works. And it's been great ever since. The way that it works, it weighs probably half a kilo more. And it's clearly got metal plating in the back. They put a whole new bracing system in.
Yep.
So, you can be angry at Scitec for their X55 problems they had.
And the X52 problems.
And the X52 problems.
And see, this, if it was a one-off, I'd agree.
When you're dealing with these manufacturing problems, it's going to take these companies time to respond to it. And particularly when you're dealing with something that's as specialized as a joystick like this.
Yeah.
You do have to be aware that could be a problem. Because in any industry, when you make a new product, if that product has a certain market, you may not catch the problems in QA.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, all of you who want to be early adopters for this particular new Scitec controller, do so.
Yes.
I will wait and may never buy it based on... But in my case with Scitec, my experience was I bought one joystick once that worked beautifully, never had trouble. Every other peripheral from them, I have had to return over and over and over again. And to be fair to Scitec, their return policy is seamless.
It's great.
But that is not the review that I want to give a company. I want to say I never had any trouble, didn't have to deal with it. It was not a problem at all, which I have with Thrustmaster. The Warthog, the T16000, the half dozen devices I've got with them, 0 issues. And you can go online and see the same thing. CH Products, same deal. Logitech, I don't want to know how many controllers I've gone through with them. No issues until I get tired of it and sell it and then get the new one. So yeah,
I've had a couple of Logitechs conk out on me. That's
exactly.
Me.
So the individual inductive logic for controllers, don't worry about our individual test points.
No.
But with anything brand new, maybe hold
ready.
off a little bit. Yeah.
Anytime something new is getting mass produced, be ready. And that doesn't just apply to controllers. It's any early adopting hardware.
Okay.
So you're saying I shouldn't buy that Tesla? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe.
All
That's
right.
not new anymore.
Moving on, we get to the next point of contention, which is how the hell do you pronounce the company that makes the saber? Because
Aegis.
Yes, okay.
Aegis.
I have heard it pronounced Aegis, and that's how I pronounced it for a long time, but I've also heard it pronounced Aegis. And
I've heard that, and they're wrong.
Aegis.
So this website, this is the Cambridge Dictionaries Online, says...
Aegis.
Okay, that sounds like Aegis to me, with an A.
Yes, this goes
but
Aegis.
this YouTube channel, Pronunciation Book, says...
Okay.
Aegis.
Cambridge University
Says
Pronunciation
Aegis.
Guide versus YouTube. I want you to say that once just to hear it for yourself.
Aegis.
No, but listen. British English says...
Aegis.
American English says...
No.
Aegis. Okay, so we have
come to the conclusion at this point that there are two ways where you might say this.
Okay.
And Chris
So
Roberts still says Aegis.
Well, Chris
Or
Roberts has been in the
AGS.
U.S. for a long time.
In the the Squadron 42 thing where they went through
Oh,
the whole like tour, at the end, the woman that's warning you not to get on the captain's bad side says Aegeus. And I'm like, what the hell? Guys!
Okay, so let's be
two
clear.
ways. You
It's
combine
not
them.
Aegeus.
It's not
We can
it's not
rule that
Aegeus.
one out.
It's not Aegis. It is Aegis. But if maybe if the British say it a certain way, and Cambridge is British, so I'm gonna go with no. But maybe you want to look at it this way. There is the British way to say it, and then there's the right way to say it, and we say it the right way. We say Aegis.
I think
and
it's
we don't say
it's
it any
considered
other
correct
way.
to say it either way. I just can't understand why the character says Aegeus in the actual Moro
Because
tour.
the voice actor clearly flubbed the line, and they kept it.
And they probably didn't correct him properly. They probably told them it was Aegeus.
It was the
Aegeus.
best of all the takes that they took, and that was the one error in it, so they stuck with it.
Well, I'm
Right?
saying that just proves that they don't have
No,
a high enough
what
quality
they do
control.
Is they need to go into the sound, and they need to cut that one part of that one line, and they need to have Callie specifically saying that word
I do that.
So it's just a
I do
woman
that
saying,
gruffly.
"Welcome to the ship. Here, you gotta see it." Aegis.
Aegis. You laugh, but somewhere out there is a cut of Meghan Trainor's All About the Bass, and then whenever she gets to the word bass, is my voice going, bass.
Okay, we've
Why?
clearly
Why does
improved
this
the game.
exist?
So if
Because
you
it
need
was
to
important at the
contact
time.
us, CIG, you can send feedback to feedback@talesofshow.com. We'll get that. So anyway, the Squadron 42 trailer, let's get right on it and say, was that not freaking awesome?
It was awesome.
Oh man.
I love the
Finally.
cameos. See, this is where I'm going to troll our audience a little bit. But I think Michael Dorn did a great job. Vin Diesel, his character was awesome.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee.
Oh yeah, Vin Diesel was that woman in the third row who stood
Yes.
up slowly.
And I was really surprised to see Macho Man Randy Savage as the president of the UEE.
Yeah, I know that was pretty good. I mean, snap into a hornet. That was a good take. I like that.
Anyway, the first thing that I noticed when I was listening to this, that voice is unexpected, is it not?
Yes, it was very unexpected.
It's a little gravelly. I
It
kind of like
was.
that.
It definitely had the guy has been smoking 30 years too long.
I was
feel
thinking
to
since
it.
he's an admiral, he's probably been yelling his whole career, and his
Yeah.
voice is just permanently hoarse now.
It could be any more. If he was an admiral and in the first Vandal War, it could be he inhaled something rather toxic, which completely screwed his lungs up. I'm only basing this on
The other thing
veterans
is
from others.
he
but, yeah.
sounds older than he looks, but this is 900 years in the future. Of course they live to be 120 or 130, so this guy could be
Or
50
more.
or 60 and look, late 40s, which is what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
That's very true.
And he could be notably older than he looks. And who knows?
Makeup is very important when you're giving a speech like this. So, like a really good makeup artist just kind of dabbed it all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, I was blown away by the quality of the facial animations.
Yeah, they did a good. I'm not sure how it compares to something like the animation we see from some of the bigger studios, like EA's got the GTA 5. Like they've got some very good animations on the voice quality, but it's up there, in my opinion. The way they synced it all up for the Squadron 42 storyline.
Man.
So I'd say that it's doing real well.
The one thing that plenty of people criticize is, even though his face looks great, the rest of his costume is perfectly static. Like he's got the most starched shirts in the world.
They forgot to get the capture on that part of the bodysuit. It's neck up only.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still gonna get worked on before the
Oh, yeah.
actual game is delivered. But man, was that great!
Yeah.
That was just
Yeah, and-
fantastic.
Should we give a little spoiler warning here? Spoiler warning for the
Spoiler
people who don't follow. Have you guys followed Twitch at all?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Mark.
Have we followed
All right,
Twitch?
so Okay, so
What kind of
let's
question is
not switch. I'm sorry. Twitter. I don't really follow Twitter much, but on Twitter, a very popular actor among the sci-fi crowd has been talking about his role in Squadron 42.
Is this Hamill?
Anybody? Yep, Mark Hamill.
Well,
Yeah.
they gave it away at the end of the trailer, dude. It's not a
They,
secret.
I
they
know.
specifically said Mark Hamill is in this.
Yeah,
and then
I
they
know.
showed him
For those
later
of
in
you
a
who
video.
are terrible at identifying actors. That is Luke Skywalker.
And the Joker.
And the Joker.
And the
well
trickster.
done.
Let me ask you guys this part. At the
Midnight
very
Stalker.
end, I kind of got this sinister feeling that this guy is going to get a ton of power and like maybe be the next, High General Messier, whatever.
Mercer?
Mercer.
Because just
So are
listen
you
to the
saying-
very end here and look, it's
Messer?
kind of like a
Who's
sinister
Messer?
look in his
Okay.
eye.
All right.
There can be no survival!
I don't know.
He kind of looks
I feel
like
like
he's
it's-
like about to, he like kind of squints a little bit, but I don't know. I could just be reading
Now-
into it.
The other
Wait,
thing
wait.
to do is keep this in the context that they've been talking to us about the lore surrounding this time
Yeah.
and the cuts in military spending and all the budget problems the UEE is running into.
I mean, this guy's a war hero.
This,
He just
Yes.
won the Battle of Vega against the Vandal, and he's here to tell people we got to do this more often. Like win
Yeah.
against the Vandal. It's possible.
We can't live with the Vandal. Is it just me or did the video feed go crazy?
It just got weird.
We can't live with
yeah.
them. We can't. It just got weird in here. I haven't been here long enough. It's just getting weird. Yeah. So we can't live with peace with the Vandal. So we have to, fight our way through it, and we have to really bring war to them. No survival without victory, I think was what he said in the actual
Right.
speech, which was a very, very strong line. But Bridger, are you telling me that they may use a politician gaining political power over the military as a plot point when he turns?
Well, no, he's
Because I think
actually
that's
an
an
admiral.
unprecedented
He's
story
an
arc.
admiral in the UE, so I think he
It's
might
true.
perform a coup when he doesn't get what he wants. Like the war is
Ooh, I
going
like that.
poorly, and he's gonna demand something, and for the greater good, he might take over he'll be well respected by people, and you might have to be like the underground guys that are like, hey, this isn't right. They shouldn't take over and have to stop him or something. I mean, that's probably way down the line. If it's something
The
they're
greater
thinking about
good.
doing, I don't think that storyline is something that we're going to see in Squadron 42. It might be in Squadron 42 Part B or whatever you want to call it, Episode 2 or whatever,
One of the overarching story arcs in
or in the live
PU
world,
itself.
in the live universe. That could definitely be the
So
case.
his supporters might give out missions to bring down Vega's economy or to get information about the Vandal or
I was disappointed we
I
did
can
not
see that
see
being a lot of fun.
we did not see Frodo or Sam
That-
on that list. I mean, we had Gimli and we had Gollum. John Rhys Davies and Andy Serkis were
Yeah.
both on that list.
True.
And they're both fantastic. I would have loved to have seen Boromir. What's that actor? Damn it, now I can't remember his name.
Now we're going to know that every Vandal is going to sound like Gollum.
Oh, he does the voice of the Vandal?
And then my wife is going to come into the room, because I'm going to have the speakers on, and she's going to murder me. She's
I did
going to
not-
murder me in
I didn't
cold
know
blood
that,
because she finds that voice
Do we
terrifying.
know that for sure, though? Do we know for sure that
No.
he's going to be the voice? Oh, you're just making that up.
No,
Okay.
we
You're
don't.
getting me excited.
No.
So,
no.
Sean Bean.
Yes.
If he was in Squadron 42, we would know who dies. That would be a useful piece of information. Somebody's going to die during the story, and if Sean Bean was in the game, we'd know who it was.
Yes, we would.
So it's too bad he's not. I
like
guess it's probably good because there's no spoilers now. So,
All right.
what else is there on this speech? It was great. Now, then they go on to talk about how they're going to have these. Well, Chris talked about how he's, within the single player experience, you're going to have these relationships with the characters. You're going to get to know them, and they're going to have some bearing on how the story goes. And like, wow! So in addition to doing, the best damn space sim ever, and also being able to create this massively multiplayer universe, and being able to create this hardware, and being able to create this game with all this trading and economy stuff, and doing all this, he's also doing a BioWare character interaction dating sim. In addition to all that.
And this is why Foundry 42 is the biggest studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have a pretty massive workload right now.
Really, what I'm hoping for, though, is that they hired some really high-quality writers, because that can really kill games. Games don't spend enough on high-quality writers. There aren't a lot of high-quality writers out there. Most of them are either authors or they're writing screenplays in Hollywood. We don't get to see many high-quality writers write stuff for games. I mean, we usually get the kind of stuff like... the generic fantasy guy that everybody lauds as like this. He wrote all the D&D stuff. I can't remember his name now, but he's just
Gygax?
Not Gygax. No, all the D&D novels that take place.
Oh, the novels.
The novels, and
Yeah.
he writes the most generic, boring, tropey fantasy you can think of, and that's
I put on
why
my robe and wizard hat.
Yeah, it's not quite that tropey.
Wait, are we? Are we discussing like the Drizzt Do'Urden series?
Yes,
That,
yes, and I'm trying to remember his name.
I know you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
He was
but I can't
also
recall
like
the name.
They were saying they were marketing the fact that this guy was writing for Kingdoms of Amalur, and the reason I stopped playing Kingdoms of Amalur is because the story was so boring. It was so great from a plot standpoint. Like I was hooked into it from the beginning, and then they just lost me. It was like it got so boring.
Yeah.
That's
now,
really disappointing.
If they want to go with like the BattleTech novels, if you guys were into BattleTech way back in the day, Stackpool is still alive.
Wow.
And that's about all I can say to recommend him.
R.A. Salvatore. R.A. Salvatore. I have not personally
Salvatore.
read anything specific, but I have heard he writes super generic stuff, and I was very disappointed with his writing in the Kingdoms of Amalur, despite the fact that everybody's very happy about it.
Like there are multiple people that noted R.A. Salvatore. We're sorry, R.A. Salvatore.
There you go.
Salvatore is a very prolific author.
He is definitely prolific.
I've read a lot by him. And he's got a lot of strong fans, and I agree. Some of his stuff is pretty tropey and not great, and some of it is really good. I found the novels he writes outside of the D&D worlds generally better than the stuff he writes that conforms to a certain mythos.
That makes
build.
sense.
So yeah.
But anyway, so next up, because we're running a little bit past the time that we normally run to, which is usually longer than we want to run anyway.
Already too long, yeah.
We're good.
One of the things
we have to catch up, you know.
The things that came up next was they showed behind the scenes footage with most of the actors, including all the ones that they had mentioned, including Gary Oldman, and they had, I think, shots of Mark Hamill came in there at the end, like he was like the big headliner. That was like everybody was looking for him. I was like, he's not there. Nope, that's John Rhys Davies. Nope, that's not him. That's
but the last person was Gillian Anderson.
Oh, that's right. The last one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
pretty cool.
So cool. Very big names on there.
Yeah, but I still think we need to make up some more names to throw out there. You know, we have Ice Cube. Sean Bean, we can't put in there anymore. I was not surprised to see John Rhys Davies joining the cast because he's done games before. He did voice acting for the original Dune game.
Really?
The one that was like a video.
Was he the demon like dying screaming noise?
No, he was one of the Mentats in the Dune game. This is not Dune 2, which was a strategy game. This was you the individual character, Paul Atreides, go out and visit the Steeches and go around the planet, and it was one of the first CD-ROM games you could buy. It was very interesting.
Nice.
So after this admittedly really cool moment where they were showing off the behind-the-scenes stuff, we got to see the story demo of like the intro of you arriving on the Stanton, the UEES Stanton.
That ship is big.
It is
and
big.
It's not even one of the big ones.
No.
Yeah.
And they had to have. They just had to have a Scottish engineer. Really, they just had to.
Now until forever, that accent will exist because of engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Scotty. Yeah. Well, speaking of tropes, actually, I think the Scottish engineer is now going to be the sci-fi trope of all time.
Pretty much.
You can't not have it at this point.
I mean, Team Fortress 2 threw us a curve, and they made it the Scottish demo man.
Yeah.
And the engineer was just a hick.
Yeah.
Which, based on the Scotsman I know, probably more accurate. Let's be absolutely clear. Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed immediately is that So I just recently got back. I think I mentioned last week, last time I got back from Battleship Cove recently, which is a place where it's like a museum ship, like many of them that are around, and it's the USS Massachusetts, which is a battleship that fought in World War II. And wow, that place is super cramped. Like most military naval vessels, it is super cramped. And this place, I mean, the hangar you would expect to be big enough because it has to fit the ship so that they don't crash into the walls. Yeah. That's all well and good. But let's fast forward just a little bit to the point where we go up on like the flight deck, and man, is that spacious! Like it's super spacious. Yeah. And I did not expect.
Those are the design decisions they made. They wanted us to have some claustrophobia, but they wanted the ships to look Star Trek-y.
Yeah,
you know?
You're right. Yeah. Star Trek doesn't have that same confinement.
You walk into... Go ahead, sorry.
Listen, they have a future aesthetic clutter. Is what it is. And a flight deck wouldn't I'm thinking about a modern aircraft carrier, you only have a couple planes up there at a time, the ones you're about to send out. Mm-hmm. But if you get down into the reserves area and the hangar below the deck, that is just jam-packed wall to wall with stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I can see where you get some open areas and where you're not. And again, didn't they talk about, maybe it was a year ago now, about how they want the ship to get progressively dirtier if you don't clean it and you don't work hard to make it look upkept and that. So this could be the
pieces of litter. They'll leave pieces of litter, and if you personally aren't responsible and pick it up, it will represent that the whole crew is being irresponsible and the whole thing gets messier.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to hire Gray to clean my ship for me. He seems very detailed and task-oriented.
So I've got an 890 jump to worry about.
Another thing to note here, in the background we have a Saber. At first I thought it was a Vanguard, but that is the new Saber right there with the sort of inverse wings, which is really cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we already see the Saber in game, which is very cool. Yes, and I think Space Janitors should be the NPC you can also hire. A shout out to our YouTube chat there. So cat girl trafficking and Space Janitors are the two things we can confirm about Star Citizen from this podcast.
Yes, because we've made it. We've made it up on this podcast, and that's why we can confirm it, because we know that we have made it up and it is confirmed. So I actually like the approach they've taken here with this guy telling you what a gossip all these other people are, except that he's telling you all the personal details of everybody on the ship. I think it's very endearing, this guy that they've got giving you the tour. They did a great job with him.
We have folks saying that was indeed actually the Gladius.
That was the Gladius? Somebody in the chat identified it as a...
Apparently.
Hang on. Wasn't there a... I guess it was a Gladius.
I surrender. That's all I can say. It's...
No, I think they're right. It has less body. The Saber has that big, thick thing going on.
I thought the Gladius,
Is this going to go back to your, not the biggest package comment? It's got the big, thick thing going on, not the biggest.
All right, Andreas, thank you. It's a Gladius. Gotcha. The Saber is pretty much a super Gladius,
yes, okay.
Sure. Isn't the Gladius also made by
you don't believe us about
Aegeus?
Cat trafficking?
I think it's...
You mean the Aegeus? Yeah.
the Aegeus.
It's like trying to... Aegeus. I think the thing with Aegis, to go back to that, is it's kind of like trying to stop spelling banana. You never know really when that word has to stop, so Aegeus, I think, could be what we go for here.
Now they're telling me I'm not pronouncing Gladius right. Or Gladius.
I like how you said it right that time.
You got it right the first time.
You know what? I like my Glade plugins. No, I like my short swords from the Roman era. Yes, it's Gladius.
Okay.
If you just try and pronounce it in like Latin, you can usually get it pronounced correctly, because the A is not something you hear in Latin as much as the
Age of Jesus.
Gladius.
Yeah, I think the age of Jesus is the right way to put it.
I don't want to kill somebody
killing
with OCD.
people in chat. That's what I'm hearing.
So anyway, we're getting off topic again. So That
No.
was a very cool demo. I thought it was great.
It was.
Any other comments
And
about
that-
that demo that we saw here? We saw a
The,
pretty cool engine room, I have to say. That actually does look
The
pretty cool.
transport
Yes.
ship. Yeah, the transport ship was mentioned. That comes with all of the different Idris models that people have picked up. Just cool utility ship.
That's the one that
Yeah.
he gets transported in the very beginning, right?
Yeah, that's the one that comes with an Idris.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a
That's clearly what
Raptor
you're
from
judging
Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, it gives me the just clearly influenced by that design.
Man,
Very
is that
much
a cool scene.
That was a Vanguard that just flew by,
It was.
right? I'm trying to learn these things on
No,
site.
that
What
was a Gladius
No.
again.
Damn it!
No, Glad.
Which one's a Vanguard? No, hang on.
That's
If
still a
this is a
Gladius.
Gladius, then the
Yep.
one inside isn't.
No, the one inside's still a Gladius.
No. This has the long back wing. All right, we're gonna go look at the one. This is like the best radio
Oh
ever.
no! Oh boy! Now you got chat. You've done it. You've broken.
And
Bridger.
it's a Gladius.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Okay, damn it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it through a window with a strut. You see, that's my problem. I'm in a freelancer all the time. There's a strut in my way.
It's blocking your vision. You can't see the approaching ships.
Yes. Okay, so
Yeah.
anyway, the Raptor / what is that thing? Did they give a name to the transport ship yet?
I just know it's a utility ship. I don't
It
remember
looks
what
like a
they call it.
Raptor. It very much
Idris
looks like
utility
a Raptor.
ship.
But
Yeah.
it's got its own flair. I like
Very
it.
much
I'm
so.
gonna look this up.
I hope they have larger transport ships in the same style. The
I
kind you
suspect
can
we'll
actually
see
pilot
something
from system to system. Yeah.
Let me
Give it
see what a
time.
Saber actually looks like. I saw a single shot of it
Oh,
during the
no.
thing.
Oh no.
Oh, the
no.
Saber's got a swept back wing. I didn't know that.
No, that's
Yeah.
an Endeavor, Bridger.
No, I'm looking at. Damn you! This is the Saber Q&A. All right.
Yeah, they put a picture of a Gladius there just to screw with you, Bridger.
You mean Gladius or is it GLaDOS?
GLaDOS.
Yeah, I think the GLaDOS should be involved in this somewhere. You should find like some.
No,
some
how do they
monument
have? They
to
have
the
a
first robot
Gladiator and a
uprising.
Gladius, and they
Yeah.
all look the damn same now to me. I'm gonna
They're
get
really
cue
glad-
cards, like flashcards, and
really-
like memorize them all.
They're really glad handing the names at this point.
So they are. And with that,
I like that. Oh. Hey, you shutting me off too? Come on.
Yeah, he's had enough of it.
Oh.
I
He's done
launched
with
the wrong
us.
program.
And now we're at war.
But yeah, I mean, talking about very quickly the Saber, cool looking little ship.
Oh, yes, it
It's
looks
interesting to see that they created something slightly lighter, but comparable-ish in armament to the Hornet. Though, have you guys seen the Size 4 gun in action that you can mount on top of a Hornet instead of a turret?
No.
I have, but I've not
Oh, this
fired
is
it.
fun. Let me pull this up on Reddit. I'll link this over.
Yeah.
This is funny.
It got my large bore weapon hard on going.
Yep. Okay, Bridger, I'm sending you this link.
Okay.
This is everything that many of us have ever wanted in a tank cannon
Oh,
mounted on a
that's
ship.
right. This is the one they put in 1.3.
Yeah.
So credit here goes to Mr. Herpderp, who is Taldren
He's
on
like
YouTube.
one-shotting these Vandal.
Oh, yeah, it's a tank
Yes.
cannon. And you can see the mass hit them and watch them spin. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I suspect so. In the Constellation footage, there was a time when a big gun, not in the turrets, was firing, and the whole thing shook. I suspect that was this gun mounted on the Constellation.
You think? Interesting.
I
thought
think
it was
it
just
was
taking
causing some
damage.
massive
but-
screen shake. It could have been damage, but I mean, it seemed like every time you go boom, and then wah, and then they'd be back to able to fire normally. But yeah, he's one-shotting everything with this.
Oh, and this is in a
Yes.
Cutlass, it looks like.
It is. You can mount it on top
It
of
is,
a
yeah.
Cutlass or on top of a Hornet right now with the turrets. I
Man,
have to
even if
say,
it doesn't destroy
Mr.
the thing, it
Herpderp
makes
on
it
Reddit,
spin.
Thank you for recording
Yeah.
this. This made my evening.
Yeah.
I wonder. So it's a mass driver, right? It's not a laser cannon.
It's a mass driver.
Yeah, it's a ballistic
it
weapon,
has
yeah.
a couple hundred rounds of, oh dear God, it hurts.
Yeah, so you can't shoot too often.
It's
Not
got
like
a
the
low rate of
Bulldogs where
fire, but when you hit, it's
It
hilarious.
It's got like 105 rounds in it, according to this on the left here.
I think at some point in this video he hit somebody from 1.5 kilometers out, and that made me pretty
Oh,
happy
gosh.
because it's a slow projectile speed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
I
if
can
you're
see it
shooting
now.
someone
It
who's
is,
not moving.
it is slow. You have to get pretty close. But when you do, man, that knocks them right out.
I mean, in the descriptor, for those of you who've played the 1.3 PTU, it is a lot of fun when it works. They do say it should be short range, but if you can lead somebody well enough with this thing,
Or if they don't know you're there.
man, oh man,
If they're just flying in a straight line, not paying
Yeah.
attention, you can hit them pretty good.
so between your crashing into people with go-karts that now explode, you can fire this cannon at people.
Fair enough.
Which was awesome. I need more exploding go-karts with customized skins from all the referrals I'm going to get.
Okay, so
Oh, that's sad because, yeah.
Yeah. I've already sent
Oh.
out all the gift packs I'm
Yeah,
going to send
I didn't
out.
talk
No more
about-
referral codes for me.
I didn't talk about the referrals because that's
It's a cool system.
it's not
I mean,
bad.
it should exist, but I wish you could just kind of UEC some of the stuff. Like, I don't know, the new fish tank.
I want,
want
a new
so
fish
many
tank.
fish tanks.
Why do I want a new fish tank? I don't know
Everyone
why,
wants
Because
but
the
I
one in-
do.
Virtual fish are much easier to take care of than real fish. That's why.
Well, there's that.
I never feed mine.
Yeah.
Piranhas? Just throw the
They're going
dog
to introduce
foot
that in
there
a patch
occasionally
and nobody's going to know. Like, in this patch, like, small print at the bottom, you have to feed your fish or they're going to die. And it's like, whoa, hey, everybody starts reporting my fish are dying. Like, oh, man, there's this patch note. Nobody noticed it.
Yep.
I'm not, no, it would be upvoted so much on Reddit, everybody would know that the fish have- Let's not kid ourselves.
PSA, my fish have died. Yeah.
So,
we've
thoughts
got a
on the
question,
new
chat, about
cross-class
yeah,
CCU.
cross chassis,
Cross chassis.
upgrades.
The cross-class
I think it finally
CCU.
has hit the sweet spot where it was intended to be.
Yeah.
Because right now it's useful in two situations. People who have one package and they want that one package to change to something else,
Yeah.
and people who have a random ship that has LTI on it that they don't care about, that they want to turn into a big ship with LTI on it. And that's basically all it's good for.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
really. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
what it was made for.
Weren't there people buying like a bunch of Hull A's that they could transfer into something else in order
Something
to get the
cheap,
LTI?
yeah.
Hull
That was
A's
what?
and Reliance, both.
Oh, that's right.
and then-
Reliant.
Yeah.
Misk Reliant, the little starter.
Yeah.
No, there
Q2
was
starter, yeah.
there was another one that's popular for that too. The other Drake ship.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Herald.
Thank you, the Herald. Yeah, that one was popular for that too.
Man,
But that's just it. That's people who got those were going to do it anyway. I mean, we knew this was coming.
Yep.
But really, this system was built for people who said, have an Aurora, I want an Avenger, I don't want to have to crunch my package and then buy a new one.
Crushing your package is hard work and painful.
If your package is a big one, particularly.
Heyo, and with that, I'm hitting the music. Let's
I
play
think
them off,
Callie's being
people.
muted, yeah.
Let's play them off.
Hey,
Thanks for-
the first of those jokes was definitely Gray's masterwork.
Thanks all for watching. This has been a kind of drunk version of Tales of Citizens.
Minus the painkiller, I'm very sober.
Yeah, but oddly drunk
Well,
at the
that's a
same
lot-
time.
That's just caffeine.
That and
These
that and the
terrible
lack of
jokes
sleep,
brought to you
yeah.
by Sobe. Sobe, make bad decisions.
Yeah, I think it's more lack of sleep than anything at this point.
It very well might be. That having been said, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a good night. Tune in next week for our reactions to the Guild Wars 2 expansion, and the week after that, we'll be back with another Tales of Citizens. Have a good one, everybody. Okay, I could not find my damn spinner for the life of me at the end of there. I was trying... Hang on. You know what?
You're
Somehow
trying so hard.
the number of individual ships have just ballooned out of control, and I don't know when that happened. I'm trying to
and
count them
Rebecca
here.
Back-
We got 5, and then I'm not counting variants. I'm just trying to count ships, ship types. 6, 7,
Yeah.
8,
Oh, boy.
9. I'm going
Many
to call the
ships.
entire hull
Handle
series as 1. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Many ships, such ages.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Starfarers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That'd be 30. 1, 2,
4?
3-ish. So, yeah, so 33, 34 individual types of ships. Holy crap, no wonder I can't figure out which one is which.
Does that count the runabouts?
You mean like the P-52
runner?
Merlin?
Yeah, the P-52,
Yeah.
the P-54.
I'm counting the
and
ones on the
the
ship
890
stats page.
jumps.
I'm counting the,
okay,
so
the
the
ship
ones you
stats
can
page.
buy.
So yes,
So
the
you're missing
P-52
the
is on
P-52
there.
upgrade, and you're missing the 890's runabout.
And plus the Raptor-looking one that
Yeah, so that's
comes
3.
with the Idris, I guess. So yeah, let's say 35-ish.
And we know that there's going to be 2 Reliant variants.
Oh, man.
Well, he didn't count the variants.
How am I
Right.
supposed to memorize all this stuff? I'm playing Guild Wars 2 all the time.
That's-
Oh, you know
That's-
the other
that
thing I
sounds like
forgot
his
to
problem.
mention that I wanted to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I got my Steam controller
Oh.
and my Steam
I
Link.
pre-ordered
There be
mine.
thumbs.
What
How did you get it early?
do you mean? How did I get it early? I got it on time.
Was it early?
I pre-ordered mine. I maybe I should check my mails for tomorrow.
Yeah, if you
you
pre-ordered
pre-order it
early
from?
enough, you get it first, and then it officially launches on November 10th, I think, which means there's no freaking support. So I had to figure things out on my own for a while. I'd say it feels fairly good. If you have larger hands, then you probably have larger packages. But if you have larger hands, this is going to work out well for you. I don't know how to indicate. I mean, the button placement is weird. To have my thumb all the way down here all the time for button placement versus more comfortably back here,
Huh.
I don't know. I think it works. It definitely works. I still feel like I would have been more comfortable with the buttons up here. I think they did this just for symmetry, but I would have preferred to have the buttons up here and the joystick up here and these two things down there. But they don't really have the room for that with this design, so it's unfortunate. I'm playing down here a lot, and then it's messed up again. What are you guys doing that messes that up? You're sharing things. Stop sharing.
I shared
sharing.
nothing.
You unshared something then.
No?
I did unshare something. I sent the picture and then brought it back.
So I
Apparently
like.
that totally screws
Here's
it
one thing I
up.
really like is it's got all the buttons that a regular controller has, like a regular 360 controller. So I mean, you've got the thumbstick, you've got what amounts to a D-pad that can also be a touchpad if you want. You've got what amounts to a joystick if you want it, or it can be a mouse if you want it. You've got the 4 buttons here. You've got start, you got select. You've got the shoulder button up here, 2 regular shoulder buttons, and then 2 that are 2-stage analog controls, which is great because that actually gives you another option if you do the full click down versus just clicking down a little bit. And then they have the 2 buttons for down here, and those are super useful. You can use those as a shift button, so you just hold that down and suddenly your ABXY is a completely new set of buttons if you want it to be. So I'm a huge fan of these 2 buttons right back here that are really easy to hit. Those are great. Now, here's my question to you guys. All the standard controllers have the analog and the button at the top shoulder pads, right? Do you use just your index fingers to control both, or do you put your index on the button and your middle finger on the analog button?
My controller is actually not in this room right now, but thinking about it, I hold it like this, and both my fingers are at the top. So I do.
You're
I do
using
the middle
both
and
fingers
index.
to move the analog and the buttons.
And the ring fingers are the ring fingers would be below on the bumpers or on the triggers, I should say. So
the triggers is what I'm talking about. So your ring finger would do the Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I've got like my. Yeah, so yeah, I'm with you. I'm hip. I'm
that would
cheeky
make
with
sense.
Because
If
for
you
the
got big
longest
enough
time,
hands,
every time I've
just
been
about.
using my 360 controller, I always use my index to do both the trigger and the bumper. And I'm wondering if I should be using 2 fingers up there instead of, or 4 fingers, I guess, instead of 2, because it's easier to do and going back and forth with a finger versus. I don't know. I've been experimenting with using my middle fingers to do the triggers instead. And it's been working out. I have to just kind of retrain myself. I will say that the haptic feedback on these is amazing. It by default, in a lot of situations, this is set up to be mouse input, but it's set up as a trackball. And there's a couple reasons for that, because you don't have the surface area of an actual mouse. So it would result in you constantly going like this to go to the left. Whereas if you were using it like a trackball, you would do this once and it would have a little inertia. And the feeling, the haptic feedback, it feels like there's a trackball in here and that the surface I'm moving over is spinning a trackball. It's super effective at like getting you to feel what you're doing. So I can tell
it makes
when
you
it's
feel like you're touching balls. You heard it here, folks.
I didn't
You're
do
first.
it. That was gray. It's all gray.
nothing else can be said.
You should be doing what comes naturally. Well, that's good. I'm glad you like the controller that much. I did order one and the Stream Link to do it up on my TV, so I will be enjoying that.
I'm also really happy with the ability to customize these controls to pretty much anything that you want, be it keyboard commands or anything else, per game. So remember your controls. You can also upload your control scheme to the cloud, to the Steam cloud, and you can see what other people have recommended. Theoretically, there's also going to be a way for you to vote, and so you can see the most popular control schemes for game X or game Y. And of course, the manufacturers can make their own official, like when I play Rocket League, for example, you look at the menu and it says, here are our main templates. If you're playing a first-person shooter type game, here's this one. If you're just trying to make it emulate a standard gamepad, you can use this one. And if you want it to act like a mouse, you can do this one. And then at the top, it'll say recommended, because this is the official developer-created profile for the Steam controller. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool things in this that I'm liking. I've been playing The Witcher with it as well, and found out that I suck at The Witcher because I haven't played it in like 3 months. So I lost all of my. Well, I forgot a lot of what I was supposed to do, and I'm learning a brand new controller at the same time, so my muscle memory is shot. So yeah. I spent like 5-6 times going back at the same bad guy over and over again, trying not to die right away. And then eventually just being like, okay, now I got it. I haven't taken a single hit at all, killed him. I can move on in the game. You should be using what comes naturally. Well, what comes naturally is not always what's most effective, young man. Well, I guess Ruben probably is a man. Anyway, that's my point, is it might be more effective.
It's the internet.
You know what it is? On the 360 controller, it feels quicker to get back and forth from the trigger to the button a little bit.
Okay.
And this one,
All right.
I don't know, maybe the button's big though. But the button is like
so big
raised
you can't
out.
help it, yeah.
I don't know. It feels like it's a little bit kludgy because they feel like they're so big as buttons. Going back and forth from one to the other feels like it's a bigger movement of my hand to accomplish that than if I just rest my fingers up here. So yeah, I think you're right. I think I should be doing what comes naturally. I'm sorry I yelled at you, Ruben. Will you ever forgive me?
I think we're past that. We're past forgiveness.
All right, so let's call it then. That's the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching / listening. I hope it was entertaining. I'm sorry, went off on a lot of tangents this week. And there was a lot of interruptions, but we were very excited when we mentioned at the beginning that we were going to be gushing instead of leaking. We were not lying. All right, with that, have a good one.
See you later.